Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to Rare Variants, the series in which I take some of our favorite video game consoles that we know and love for one reason or another, and we talk about the rare oddball iteration that they have that's either a limited edition for some reason, or a complete redesign that maybe came out in just one country, who knows. Each one of those kind of oddball things has its story to tell, and I would like the opportunity to talk to you about that story today. Before we do that though, if you guys could do me a favor, if you could like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that before, as well as check out the social media stuff in the description. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, etc. Please follow me on all those things. I really appreciate the support. Thank you very much. You can also check out my new channel called Flying and Eating, which is an adventure channel that actually included the adventure in which I got this thing, so let's transition right into that, but I appreciate the support if you go over there and subscribe to that channel as well. Yes, today we'll be talking about this, the Crystal Edition original Xbox. Now, in order to best do that, I feel that we need to talk a little bit about where it came from before its initial release, which of course was Microsoft's own original Xbox. Their first foray into home consoles, except we don't talk about the MSX, even though it was pretty good, but we don't talk about it. For some reason, we just pretend that never happened. So the original Xbox was Microsoft's first foray into home consoles in November of 2001. And it's interesting because it was the first time an American company had really kind of come back to making game consoles since kind of Atari really went, fizzled out. Technically, Apple had made the previous American one, or VM Labs with the new one. It's really kind of a, it's not a happy era. But anyway, so yeah, Microsoft comes in and they're like, we're gonna, make consoles, right? And what's bizarre about that is that despite the fact that Microsoft is an American company and had such a huge emphasis on success in the United States, it really didn't care about having special or limited edition versions of the console in the US. Like, I've done an entire video on this. We only ever had one. We had the Halo Edition transparent green Xbox. That was it. Every other version that we got was actually a contest prize, like the Mountain Dew Xbox, which I've also done a video on in this series. I actually think it's the first video in this series. That was like a contest prize. You couldn't buy that at retail. At retail, we had the vanilla stock one, and we had the Halo green one. That was it. Other countries, though, got special treatment. They got a whole bunch of different versions, like Japan especially. They really focused on that, making ones specifically designed for that market, which is pretty cool. Then there's Canada. Canada got a bunch, and I can only speculate on this because I've never found verification of why it is. Because they got, well, this came from Canada. They also got the Blue Bell Xbox, which I've also done a video on. They had a transparent green one that wasn't the Halo edition. I mean, that's 3 additionals the United States never got. And the big question is, why? Truth be told, I don't know. Part of me wonders if it was just like a tax credit thing. Canada has a bunch of laws about, hey, if you do something that's like very pro-Canadian, very unique to Canada that America isn't doing, we'll give you a bunch of tax benefits, especially if you are not a Canadian company. So it wouldn't surprise me if they gave Microsoft all kinds of tax bonuses and reductions or whatever if they were willing to release like limited editions in Canada that the US didn't get. I don't know that. It adds up. It makes sense, but that's speculation. What isn't speculation, though, is that these special editions weren't as special as people probably thought. Microsoft had kind of, they had a little trick up their sleeve. They were essentially recycling assets and then pretending like they were brand new. In Japan, that wasn't the case. They actually made ones specifically for the Japanese market. But what do I mean by this? So I was talking about the Halo one, right? I actually own that. Like I said, I did a video on it. And it might look crazy, like, oh man, it's like Master Chief, it's transparent green. That's just like Master Chief. That's why that is. No. They had actually originally made that exact color scheme for the Xbox debug kits. That was it. And so when it was time to do a Halo thing, we'll just recycle the same exact color and plastic, just stamp a Halo logo on it and call it a day. Who cares? That's all they did. And then, of course, the blue one, the Canadian Blue Bell one, originally was the Dead or Alive 2 Xbox exclusive to Japan, the Kasumi edition. And that made sense because that was such a big game for them and they really wanted the console to be successful there. That one was just kind of recycled a couple of times. They called it a Halo edition in certain countries. And then in Canada, they're like, oh yeah, it's this Blue Bell edition. When in reality, it was just them recycling assets. But you might be thinking, no, this one's special, man. It looks like ice, which is Canada. It's snowy up there. That's why they did this. This is the all-Canadian thing. No. No. Sweet child, no. In reality, it's based on the Xbox development kit. You can see one right here. So I don't own an Xbox development kit, but the one you're looking at right now is owned by a buddy of mine who let me borrow it very briefly to film some footage of it, just to show you guys this. Now, it is a development kit, so it's different, like it's bigger. You can actually see it compared here to a stock Xbox. Well, okay, not stock. That one is a special case on it, but it's the stock size. But the development kit itself says development kit on it. It has, additional ports and things because, again, it's a development kit. But basically, they had designed this ice-style transparent crystal case for that back in 2001. And then when it came around time to do some sort of special edition, oh yeah, no, we're going to do something original. It's totally original. We never did anything like this. No. See? Their North American special editions weren't really as interesting as they could have been, which is a little sad, but whatever. Point is, this did ultimately get released. So what happened with that? Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot in the history of this thing. But here's what I've kind of gathered, but, take it with a grain of salt because I've only got this from like one or two sources, and at the same time, the story doesn't totally match, and you'll see what I mean. Supposedly, this console was prepared and made and released for the 2-year anniversary of the original Xbox. The problem with that is if that was true, it would have been released in October of 2003. Yet, that's not the case. It was released in March of 2004, about 5 months later. So, unless they were very, very late to their own anniversary, it's hard to believe that that was why it was released. It is possible that's what motivated them to initiate said release, and they just fell way behind for whatever reason. But regardless, that's supposedly the core motivation to have put this on the market in the first place, at least of what's available out there. When it was released in March of 2004, it was released again exclusively in Canada as far as North America goes. And it was sold originally only at Walmart of Canada and Zellers of Canada, which is, as far as I know, a chain doesn't even exist anymore. And shout out to all the Canadians who just got some serious nostalgia berries from hearing that word. But it was released there in a limited quantity, and then phased out relatively soon after the spring. And then what happened was there was demand for its resurrection, so in the fall of 2004, it was reissued yet again in Canada, making the console a lot more common. And I can testify to that because I used to go to Canada a lot in like the 2010s, and even then, you could still find this thing very readily available at retro game stores, usually for only like $50 Canadian, which I thought was ridiculous because back that would have been like $40 US at the time, and I was like, that you have to understand, Xboxes were completely worthless at the time, like $5 maximum for an OG Xbox. The idea of paying $40 for one was laughable, even if it was transparent plastic. Now, what a steal that would be. But anyway, that was not the end of the story, though, because in March of 2004, when it came out in Canada, it also came out in Europe, with a significant focus on the UK in particular. And I can also testify to that because I've seen this thing way more frequently in the UK than I ever saw it in Canada. I remember going to retro game cons there, like Play Expo Blackpool, for example, and they would just have stacks of them. It's like, they're 20 pounds. You want one? It's like, what would I do with it? Like the problem back then was, first of all, the big, heavy, bulky things, but also they're not the easiest thing to import. Here's the difference. If you're an American who's like, that looks really cool, I want that, you're going to want the Canadian one, unless you like opening up consoles and doing, modification work. The thing with this is, because it's Canada and the United States and Canada do like compliance with each other as far as electric standards, video standards, region coding standards, there is no difference. You bring it here, plug it in, it's going to 100% work the way it should. There's nothing special required on your part. In fact, if you look at the bottom, it even has to, it mentions, of course, it complies with Canadian standards, but above that, it mentions it applies with American standards. Reason? Because everything that's released in both countries has to comply with both countries. Makes sense. So whatever. And Xbox obviously was very much available in the United States. So that one sticker is the same stock sticker that appears across every version of the console sold in North America. But UK stuff, a little different, especially with the original Xbox. In order to use it here, most likely you'd have to mod it first, because you'd have to get around the region coding. And then, of course, PAL Xboxes in particular were locked to low resolutions just because that was a decision Microsoft made. So you'd have to you'd have to hack the console essentially to unlock the standard video resolutions. And then on top of that, they also had the 220 volt power supplies inside, which would not function here. So it's very common when people do import them, they either have to swap the guts out of it with an American Xbox, and they're basically just buying it for the shell, or they do specific modifications to the power supply itself. Sounds like a lot of work. Really wasn't worth the effort for £20. So I thought, okay, eventually I'll find a Canadian one, and I did. Now, its story continues in Europe, though. It saw more success in the UK, like I said, very common there. In 2005, it also got a mainland European release, by the way, just not as prevalent of one. In 2005, only a year later, Microsoft would once again reissue this exact same shell. I believe the first place they started was France specifically. They reissued this as a Halo edition. It's not the first time they did that. Nothing on it actually even said Halo as far as I can tell. But it was just, hey, this one, but it's Halo for some reason. Most likely it was surplus units they were just trying to get rid of. But again, not the first time they did that. They actually released the blue one I was talking about before. They released that, I think it was somewhere in Asia specifically. Well, that's not very specific. But they were somewhere in Asia, they released that and called it the Halo Edition, even though nothing about it said Halo on it. So again, not unprecedented for Microsoft to do that. There was a very limited, rare version that was the MSN version. If anybody remembers MSN, it was Microsoft's chat system. It actually has etched in the plastic MSN in regards to that. However, it's kind of hard to even really count that one because I think that was just for employees and internal stuff. I think that was maybe 5 of those, who knows, that were ever made. I don't think you could actually ever really realistically own that. But the last iteration of it that was ever sold at retail, and it barely counts as being sold at retail because it's ridiculously rare, is in Singapore. Oh yes, we're talking about Singapore. Singapore got an exclusive variant of the original Xbox. It is the crystal one that you see in front of you right here, but Hello Kitty themed. What makes it Hello Kitty themed? Well, Microsoft basically decided to put stickers on it. They put decals. I'll show it to you right now. The funny thing about that one, though, is that it originally people thought it was a goof. Somebody bought a Crystal Xbox and pretended like this was a special Hello Kitty one. No, it's actually a real thing. They really did do this. It's one of the rarest versions of the console. It even comes with the Japanese build. Yes, Japanese, despite being in Singapore. I recognize they're not the same country. But it came with a Japanese build of a Hello Kitty game. Logically so, is the Hello Kitty edition. However, as far as I gathered, that is the only way to get that game. The Japanese build of it. That exact same game did come out in Europe, funny enough, on the Xbox, called Hello Kitty Roller Rescue in Europe. That one's easy enough to get. I actually have that, embarrassingly, but that's because I'm going for a full Xbox set. Don't judge me. Or judge me, I don't care. But the Japanese build of that was exclusive to that one bundle, is my understanding, and that's insane. But yeah, that was the last time they ever did anything with the Crystal Xbox, because of course the Xbox itself would cease to be supported shortly after that. So yeah, man, that is pretty much the story of the Crystal Xbox. In my case, I got it, like I said, I missed out on when I had the chance to get it cheap, but I eventually found it in Vancouver, Canada. I actually showed that in a video, pickups video already, and I actually showed it on the other channel, the travel channel, when it actually happened. Long story short, my buddy Jesse and I were going to a game store, and this has been one of my white whales. Literally in this case, crystal white whales. But I saw it there, and it had clearly been sitting there for a long time. And prices on these things has gone way up. I've seen some places in Canada charging as high as 400 Canadian, which is ridiculous. You're never going to get that. It's not even close to worth that. That's for some noob who has no idea that he's putting out way too much money for something. But anyway, this one was sitting there for about $100 Canadian, which at the time of the currency exchange rate was like $70, $75. Came with a controller, and the console was immaculate, beautiful condition, and it required me to do no work. So I was like, this is one of my big goals. Here it is right here and now. Let's just do this. Let's get it over with. And now I'm able to make the video for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. So again, if you are a collector of original Xbox stuff, especially if you are an American, this is kind of low-hanging fruit as far as, oddball versions of ones you could get. Again, this was widely released in Canada. Like, Canada is not that far away, you know what I mean? It's right over there. I'm pointing over there. Actually, no, geographically from where I'm pointing, it would be over there. But yeah, you could get this relatively easily. Don't overpay for it, though. Like, I've seen these things sell in the U.S., like, once they cross the Maple Curtain, they've seen them sell for like $300, $400. I'm like, no, like on that side, they're not even close to worth that. Just find a Canadian who's cool. Most of them are. They'll help you out. You know, it's not that big of a deal. Or if you travel to Canada, it's something to keep an eye out for. But yeah, I like it. I think it's a very neat design. It's a very welcome addition to the entire collection. So yeah, if you like this video or any like this concept, don't forget there's an entire playlist of videos like this. I covered oddball versions not on the Xbox, but Nintendo hardware, Sega hardware, Sony hardware, SNK hardware, even prototypes like the Pluto and the Nintendo PlayStation prototype. Very cool stuff. So yeah, appreciate you guys watching. As always, please do me a favor, like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that, and go on the social media stuff, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, as well as the new travel channel. I appreciate all the support. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.